Okay, hey guys, it's Izzy here, and today I am going to be showing you my book stats from 2020. As you can see, I have two Google Sheets right here. You can find these on Twitter. They were not created by me. Just wanted to put that disclaimer there. I am not that talented in making spreadsheets or anything like that. That's not where my talents stand, if I have any talents. So we'll start with just this one right here. This is the 2020 reading log template. Again, you can look these up and you'll be able to find this, but obviously you will want a 2021 one. Now, I don't know if I'm going to do one in 2021 just because these are so big and I like to have it printed out, and the printing out was literally like 14 pages. I mean, it's my fault for reading so many books, but I don't know. I don't know what I'm gonna do yet. So I'm not going to say every single book that I read because I did do a video on that last week. So if you guys would like to see all the books I read, you can check out that video there. But I will scroll through so you can pause to see. But first we have the title page, or not page, the title of the book. So we'll just use The Pillars of the Earth for an example. Then you have the author, so that's by Ken Follett. I did an audiobook, so I did have a narrator, and the narrator was John Lee. And if it was a graphic novel, like Skywalker Strikes down here, you would have the artist. So then this one is unique by having the publisher, so this was New American Library. Then you can put the published date. I can't see what year it's supposed to be, but I think it was like 06, but November 14th. And then the day you started the book. I started this book in 2019, so I don't like how they have how it's invalid. If you are tech savvy, you can go in and fix all this, but again, I'm not good at doing sheets like this, so for me personally, it was just whatever. So then you have your finish date, which for me was January 14th, 2020. I don't DNF books, but if you do, you can mark it as a DNF. Then you have your pages. The Pillars of the Earth was 973 pages. And then for my format, I did an audiobook. You can choose between print, digital, and audiobook. Again, if there's any other kind of form, you can add that in. So sources, so this is how you got this book. For me, The Pillars of the Earth, I got as a gift. I don't remember if it was birthday or Christmas, but I do have hauls on this channel, so you can go check them out there. So you have the options of on TBR, purchased in 2020 from the library, a review copy, a gift, or if you borrowed it from somebody. So then your retail source, it was a gift, it was my physical book, but I also did the audiobook because this book was a book that really dragged for me. So I put it as Audible, but you can do Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Indie, Audible, Libro.fm, I'm not sure what that is. I used Booksell and iBooks. Now, again, you can add stuff because some books I'll have from Book Outlet or Book of the Month or something like that. So I do think they should have a category for a subscription box. So I just put indie for the ones that I wasn't sure. So then the amount paid, this was a gift, so I didn't pay any money for it, so it was not available. But like the next book on this list, I paid $28 for. So you can put the amount you paid for that book. Then you have fiction or nonfiction. The Pillars of the Earth is fiction. And then you have the form. Form wasn't really something that I was too familiar with, but I did research. So that was a prose. So you have prose, poetry, novella, comics, essay collection, short story collection, or it was a play. So then you have genre. This one was historical, but you can choose between general fiction, sci-fi, fantasy, romance, historical, mystery/crime, horror, classics, general nonfiction, memoir/bio, travel/food, nature/science, current events/politics, and business/self-help. Then you have your audience that is attended to. So you can do adult or children's and middle grade or YA. And then you have the choice to mark it as own voices. And I did not mean to click that. I'm terrible on the Mac. I usually would do my sheets on the desktop, but I don't know how to. I don't edit my videos on my desktop, so it would just be a lot of work. So that's why I'm filming it on here. But then, did this book have people of color rep? So it could either be the author or artist, the protagonist, or both. So then you have LGBTQIA. So did it have that? Again, author, were they in the LGBT community? Was the protagonist, or were both of them? So then let's move over a little bit more. Okay, we'll just, oh, that is not what I meant. So then we have, okay, see, the Mac. I don't recommend getting a Mac. So then you have the creator gender. Were they male, female? Were there two people, male and female, non-binary, or other? Now this one I think is very difficult because for a lot of authors you can't find that information of what they identify as, and we'll really see that on another sheet because I don't want to assume anybody's gender. So it is, yeah, it's really just, if you know how on the back of the book it has the blurb about the author, I would just go by the pronouns that were there. So if I got any wrong, I'm really, really sorry about it because obviously I don't want to assume about that, but I can't imagine in a situation when you don't know for a fact. So then you had the reread, mark it if it was a reread. Then translation, was this book translated from another language? I don't know why my nation of origin thing is not an orange. So this is marking where the author is from. So your choices are US, Canada, UK, Australia, China, France, Ireland, India, Japan, Korea, Mexico, New Zealand, Nigeria, Poland, Russia, South Africa, and Spain. So some of these, again, like I just typed in Sweden, and I don't know if China was on the list. Okay, they were. But I know like Colombia was one where I read an author was from, and those are not listed on there. So I just typed them in, but they're not going to show up on the pie chart later. So reason for reading, everything is for fun for me, but you can do fun, work, school, book club, or personal development. But at the same time, it is kind of personal development for me because every time I go into a book, I want to learn something from that book, but I marked it as fun. So then you remember earlier you put in the time span that you read this book, so then they will add that all together and find out how many days it took you to read and how many pages per day that equals. So then you have your rating. So whatever you want to rate it, this one does have half stars, which is really nice. And 2020 was when I started giving books half stars or whatever, quarter anything, because that's when I started doing the Call Pal rating system, and that's just been so much easier for me. So we will see the read harder challenges in a minute, but you can kind of see that right there. So let's go into the actual stats. So you can see the stats like this. This I'm not a huge fan of. Just for me, I am a visual person. So seeing the actual charts themselves, like the pie charts or bar charts, whatever, were just easier for me. Now I'm trying to get this to scroll down for y'all. But you guys can just kind of see that. Again, pause if you want to um, really read into my stats, but we will get more into it over here. So finish versus DNF, I totally read 100% because I do not DNF books. Nonfiction, I read 8.5% nonfiction and 91.5% fiction. And then my formats, the majority was in the print format in 81.7%. Then over to digital, which is ebooks, which is 9.9%. And then audio in 8.5%. So that kind of really I don't know, that's flip-flopped from last year. I feel like in 2019 I read way more audio, but in 2020 I read more digitally. So then the audience I read mainly adult books, which was 64.8%, and then YA books at 25.4%, and children's at children or middle grade at 9.9%. I am trying to read more adult because I don't really enjoy YA as much anymore, but of course I already own a bunch of YA books, and I am going to read the books that I own. So then let's go down here. So the form. So the majority was prose, and I think probably the majority of published work is prose. So that was 78.3%. Then our next one is comics. So comics or graphic novels were 13%. Then we have a tie with novellas and short story collections at 2.9%. And then we have poetry and essay collections also tied at 1.4%. So now the genres. This is a pie with a lot of different kind of fillings, or a pizza with lots of different toppings. So our biggest is fantasy at 21.1%, which kind of makes sense because it is my second favorite genre. So then our second is tied with sci-fi at 15.5% and historical at 15.5%. Now, sci-fi was one of my favorite genres this year. Sci-fi and like thrillers, which this one doesn't do a good. I categorized all my thriller under mystery and crime, but we'll get to that. So those were tied. Then classics and general fiction were tied, which general fiction for me is contemporary. So those were both tied at 11.3%. Then we have romance at 9.9%, and I'm kind of shocked that that's higher than the mystery and crime, thriller, horror category, which is at 7%. Then we had general nonfiction at 4.2%. And then what do we have? Memoirs are at 2.8, and then current events at 1.4. Then this one, I don't know. I must have done a typo somewhere. Books published in 2021. Yeah, that was definitely a typo on my part, so ignore that. So this is kind of skewed, but not that much. So the books published in 2020 or 5.6%, which was 4 books, backlisted, which the majority of the things I read are backlisted. As you can see, it's 93.1%, which equals 67 books. Now for the books by page count, we have less than 100 pages. I read 5 books. My 101 to 200 pages were 6 books. Then our 201 to 300 was 18. And then our largest category was 301 to 400, which is 19 books. Then 401 to 500 were 10 books. 501 to 600, 4 books. 600 to 601, 700 was 1 book, and over 700 pages, 4 books were over 700 pages. So in the book source, this was for my own TBR, 46 books, and that was 64.8%. For purchased in 2020, 14 of those, and that was 19.7%. And the books that were gifts, that was 11 books and 15.5%. Now the retail source, again, kind of off because I don't have that book subscription service or book outlet and just some other websites. But the majority of my books came from Amazon, which is 46.2%. And then Barnes & Noble at 24.6%. Indie books were at 23.1% and Audible at 6.2%. So books finished in by month. January, I read 6 books. February 3, March 4, April 6, May 7, June 9, July 9, August 7, September 4, October 7, November 6, and December 3. Now this time of year is usually when I'm traveling, and I don't really read when I travel. So that's kind of a shock, but obviously I didn't travel this year, so I did read a lot more in the summer months than usual. So my star rating. So I rated 1 book 1 star, 2 books 2 stars, 15 books 3 stars, 10 books 3.5, 15 4, 5 4.5, and 9 5 stars. So here again, that one's screwed over, like it's not right. So the female authors I read 59.2%, male authors or artists for either one is 40.8%. Now, again, remember, I did have some countries that I don't know how to put them into the chart. So take this one with kind of a grain of salt. So the US, 69.7% of the books came from there. The UK came in second with 19.7, and then Canada with 6.1%, Australia with 3.0, and then I think this pink is China with 1, and that is 1.5%. So I read one from Sweden as well, and Colombia, and maybe some other countries, but those are the ones I can think of off the top of my head. So then POC authors versus white authors. Obviously, I needed to do a whole lot better here because I read 84.5% white authors and 15.5% POCs. So POC protagonists versus white protagonists. So books with no POC protagonists there were 43 of them, and that's 60.6%. And then books with POC protagonists I read 28, which is 39.4%. So with queer authors and artists, so again, I need to do a whole lot better. That is 97.2% was not, they weren't queer. And then 2.8% were. And then with queer protagonists, books with none was 74.6%, and books with were 25.4%. So again, this one's kind of wrong. So no, it's not wrong. So the books with in translation were 4.2%, and the non-translated was 95.8%. So own voices versus non-owned voices. Again, I need to do better. The non-owned voices were 81.7%, and owned voices was 18.3%. So let's go to the read harder challenges now. So this is just with the spreadsheet. You get this. So just some challenges maybe that you can do. You can pause if you want to read over this. Feel free to. If you have any questions, let me know. So again, you can pause down here. But that's all for the 2020 reading log. Okay, so this is the Book Trackers 2021. I think this is the one that I prefer, but again, it's hard to choose. I'm indecisive. You guys know how it is. So again, pause if you want to really see in depth of all this. I will scroll through so y'all can do that. Yeah, but again, you can see last week's video to see every single book I read in 2020. So we will again use the Pillars of the Earth as the example here because it was the first book that I finished in 2020. So you have that title category. Well, first, and this is on the other as well, it just is the count of how many books you read in the year. So then you have your title, author, pages read, hours listened if you did audio, which is really cool to have. Then the rating, again, they have the 0.5s, and then you can also put DNF in that category as well. So then you have the month read, the main genre. So the genres you can choose from here, you have a lot more choices. Anthology, classic, contemporary, dystopian, erotic, fantasy, graphic novel, historical, horror, humor, magical realism, mystery, nonfiction, paranormal, poetry, romance, sci-fi, thriller, or other. Then you have a subgenre category, because you could have magical realism and then also count as fantasy. I mean, I would personally do that reversed, but or you can have a fantasy or a sci-fi that is set in a dystopian setting. So there's a lot of subgenres you could choose from, that being other, anthology, biography, classic, contemporary, detective, dystopian, epic, erotic, essays, fairy tale, fantasy, graphic novel, historical, horror, humor, magical realism, manga, mystery, mythology, nonfiction, paranormal, play, poetry, retelling, romance, satire, sci-fi, self-help, short stories, thriller, and urban. So then you have the intended audience category, which is adult, children, middle grade, new adult, YA. Now, I really don't know what new adult is, so I didn't mark any of my books as that because I think new adult's like a fake genre, but that could be a rant for another day and it would probably trigger a lot of people. So then if that book is in a series, you can type in the series there and then obviously the number that it is in the series. Then again, you have a format section, which is audiobook, ebook, or physical. You have the release date, which is the year, which that one was 2007. Author identity. You have agender, bigender, cisgender, gender fluid, gender queer, intersex, transgender, unknown. Now that is something that is very personal, that is very hard to find an author. So I put unknown on everybody because again, I do not want to assume that about somebody because again, that as I said, it's something very personal to you. And I just did not want to assume that about people. I didn't feel comfortable, so I personally wouldn't have that as a category. So then you have the author's race, where the choices are obviously all the races there are: African, Asian, Black, Indigenous, Latinx, Mexican, mixed, Pacific Islander, white, or unknown. And again, sometimes that is hard to find because there won't be pictures on the back. And sometimes it's hard to find out exactly what somebody considers themselves. So it can be difficult to find that because a lot of people don't upfront say what their race is, and I don't want to assume. So then you have the own voices category, then the acquired category, which this one does have a lot more choices with Audible, Bookbox, Borrowed, Book of the Month, Bought, Gift, Library, Publisher, Scribd, or Other. And then it has the date started and finished, and this one like didn't murder me for not having started in 2020. Then you have the readathon category. Also, you can mark a book as a reread, and then just how you heard about that book, and then if there's any notes that you want to leave there. So then we have the yearly stats page. So I don't have a library card, and plus the library was closed for a lot of the year because of COVID. So I would like to have a library card, but I haven't been able to get my hands on one. And then the books owned versus books read. I didn't do that. I don't know why I didn't do that, but it's not there. So my pages read in total were 2,000 or 23,367. My hours listened on audio was 108, and my books purchased or just acquired, yeah, were 141. Library checkout again, I didn't do that. And then books read, I read 71 books. In January, I read 6 books, February 3, March 4, April 6, May 7, June 9, July 9, August 7, September 4, October 7, November 6, December 3. If you're like visually watching this, you can see my books verse month. I don't really know how to tell you about that. So then we have our genres read. I read 7 classics, 5 contemporary, 11 fantasy, 3 other, 8 graphic novels, 10 historical, 3 mystery, 6 nonfiction, 1 poetry, 7 romance, 8 sci fi, and 2 thrillers. So let's get into what is that percent. For thrillers, it was 2.8%. For classics, 9.9%. Contemporary, 7%. Fantasy, 15.5%. Other, 4.2%. Graphic novel, 11.3%. Historical, 14.1%. Mystery, 4.2%. Nonfiction, 8.5%. Poetry, 1.4%. Romance, 9.9%. And sci-fi, 11.3%. So let's scroll on down here. So for the format, I read 6 audiobooks, 7 ebooks, and 58 physical books. And again, we have that chart. So 58 physical was 81.7%, ebooks was 9.9%, and audio was 8.5%. So then we go into audience. I read 46 adult books, 5 children's books, 2 middle grade. Again, I don't do new adult, and 18 young adult books. So adult was 64.8%, YA was 25.4%, middle grade 2.8%, and children 7%. So let's go over here to my ratings. I had 9 5-star books, which is 15.8%. I had 5 4.5 stars, which is 8.8%, 15 4 stars, which is 26.3%, 10 3.5 stars, which is 17.5%. I had 15 3 stars, which is 26.3%. I had 2 2 stars, which was 3.5%, and 1 1 star, which was, I don't know the percent, 1.8%. So let's go back over here. So I read 71 total books, and 13 of those were own voices. So non-owned voices was 58%. So I read 81.7% non-owned voices and 18.3% owned voices. So again, I don't know author identity. I don't like to put that. So then we have my books read form. 6 of them came from Book of the Month. I bought 54 of them, and 11 were gifts. So that turned to 76.1% of those were bought. 11 of those were gifts, which was 15.5%, and 6 of those were from Book of the Month, which was 8.5% of the books I read. So now for author race, I read 1 book by a Black author, which doesn't seem right, which I need to do better. So that equals 1.4%. Okay, so African counts different than Black, apparently. So for just straight up African, it's 1.4%. I read 4 books by Asian authors, which was 5.6. No Indigenous, so if you have Indigenous recommendations, do let me know. I read 3 books by Latinx authors, which is 4.2%. None by Mexican, which, yeah, give me Mexican book recommendations. So 1 by a mixed author, which that would be 1.4%, yep. Pacific Islander, I didn't read any by a Pacific Islander. Again, give me recommendations. 55 books by white authors, which is 77.5%. I obviously need to do better. And 6 were unknown, so that's 8.5%. So then we have my favorite books and least favorite books, which I did a video on. So if you guys want to check that out, it is on my channel. So then I really like these, which it shows you the books read in the month, the pages read, the hours listened, the average rating, the books acquired that month, and if there were own voices. And if you have a library account, it would be how many library books that you got in a month is also on there. So I will let y'all pause on this if you guys would like to see the exact numbers. And then we will go to this half of the year. So then we had the books acquired, which you have the number, the acquired month, the title, the author, the series, if it's in a series, and then the number if it's in a series, where it came from, so what store, you can type that in, then the price, and if you read it, you can check that off. So I will just pause. You can pause and see. So the stats for that, y'all are gonna be shook. I'm gonna be shook. So the total spent that I spent on books was $1,599.42%, which is a lot of money. And the percent read was 11%. So note they said I've left the money symbol out due to not everyone using USD. So this is by USD. Because I am in America. All these books came from America that I purchased because, I didn't travel outside America this year, so I didn't buy books in other countries. But I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and as always, comment, rate, and subscribe, and I will see you next week with a new reading video at Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Bye, guys!